Welcome to Let's Read Screenplays. In this live stream, I want to read screenplays with you. I want to delve deep into storytelling, and I know that all of you can do much more out of this crisis and out of this quarantine life. So we are going to read screenplays, and we're not doing the live stream all over again if there's a problem. If you hear some problems because of the microphone or something like that, tell me in the chat room so I can react right away. I had this before. I'm still new to this, so please excuse if there is any inconvenience here. I have a script from England today. It's Convention by Mark A.C. Brown, and I'm really glad for all the scripts I get, and thank you, Mark, for sending me the script. If you have scripts that I can read with you here, please send them to my email address. There's only one condition. You have to want to share it with the whole world, and you have to have all the rights of the script. That's very important. You can send them to info@ergocinema.de. And we will begin with Convention by Mark A.C. Brown. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat room, or you can comment on the video and I will reply to them. Any questions about storytelling, about this story in particular, or about filmmaking, anything you see and you hear in this live stream. Okay, so we have a script that's 101 pages long, and I will comment on what I read and I will analyze what I read later on. Interior kitchen night. A meal is being prepared in a high-end kitchen. All the mod cons are there and are being used. Interior hallway night. A woman enters clearly a little drunk. She teeters through the door and takes off her coat. She giggles to herself, then sniffs. Something smells good. She takes off her shoes and tries to place them neatly next to a selection of male and female shoes in an alcove by the door. She makes her way through to the lounge. She notices a cracked picture of her and a man. She frowns with a mild annoyance. She then sees a red spot on the sofa. She dabs it. It's fresh. She huffs and strides to the kitchen door, ready to punish. Interior kitchen night. Steam wafts in her face as she enters. She stops to inhale. The pleasant aroma deadens her frown. She looks around, but there is no one to be seen. There is a note. It reads, Bedroom, XX. Interior bedroom night. Sally enters to see a red dress laid on the bed. A rose accompanies it. Sally sees it and smiles and picks up the rose and sniffs it. Interior dining room night. Sally enters wearing the dress. She sees an amazing spread of food and wine, but no one else. She looks around puzzled. She picks up a glass of ready-poured red wine and elects to try a crudite and pâté. She scoffs it down, closing her eyes in exultation. There is another note leaned against the covered plate. It reads, Sit here, XX. She sits. Behind the first note is another. It reads, Try me, XX. Sally takes the lid off the plate and screams as the garnished head of her boyfriend James sits on the plate, basted and covered in salad. An intricately half-peeled avocado sits on his head. Sally looks around frantically. James, what's going on? Who did this? Then James opens his eyes and screams. It was my mother! Ah! Sally screams. James descends into hysterical laughter. Sally tries to slap him, but he disappears beneath the table. Then behind her, the curtains come back to reveal a balcony full of her friends and colleagues, including the man we will soon come to know as Webster. They all simultaneously shout, Surprise! Sally looks at James as he appears from beneath the table, wiping dressing from his face. Happy birthday, you fucker. So I notice already the scene ends on a strong point with swearing. The script doesn't swear all over the place. It's very deliberate and it works beautifully here, in my opinion. We have a scene that plays with smell, it plays with touch, it plays on the visual side. We have all the senses in the opening. It's a very cool opening. It makes use of every sensory what do you call it? Every sensory ability we have as human beings. So it's very good opening. But Sally is not introduced as a character. She's introduced as a woman, and then suddenly she turns out to be Sally. That was the first thing I stumbled over. And it's an indicator to me that she will not be relevant later on. So I would, if I were the writer, I would put in a small line who Sally is, a small character introduction, and then we would have the same experience than a audience member in the cinema has when we watch the movie, because we think that she's the main character now. But obviously in the next scene she isn't anymore. Next morning, interior bedroom morning. James walks bleary-eyed. He struggles out of bed hungover. He goes into the bathroom. Interior bathroom moments later. James sees the avocado next to the taps. He sniggers. Next to the avocado is a small origami person made from what looks like old paper. He picks it up and doesn't see the tiny red stain beneath it. He frowns and puts it back and turns on the tap. He bends down and takes a huge swig, then swipes water over his face. The water splashes over the origami person, knocking it over and washing away the little red stain. He looks in the mirror and sees that the shower is on. I thought you'd be down till the afternoon. Mike turns to see a human shape through the shower curtain. I'm jumping in, but I warn you, I'm at least 10 minutes away from anything energetic, maybe 8. Mike pulls back the curtain to find Sally hung upside down, feet tied to the shower head, hands behind her back, head submerged underwater in what is now a full bath. Her upper body is skinned, and the skin still attached has been folded back up, intricately folded into a sort of macabre tutu. Around the tutu are the candles from her birthday cake that spell out happy birthday. So we have another shocker, much stronger than the you fucker in the scene before. This is a horror scene. We have a horror element here. We have a murderer who folds things. He does origami and he also folds people. And he left a red stain on the origami. But who is Mike? Is Mike the same person as James? I think there's a confusion with the character names here. Because I'm thinking that this is supposed to be James telling his wife that he's going into the shower. Okay, so 2 scenes in and there's a strong progression going on. Exterior beach night. A young man, Jack, 17, sits looking out to the sea. He is throwing stones at an empty petrol keg that is floating about 30 feet out to the sea. He hits it every time, even in darkness. The moonlight is all that illuminates the view. By the shore, another young man, Davy, 20, is stood over a washed-up steel corpse. He prods it with a stick. Jack continues to stare out to sea. On the horizon, a dot of light appears, a vessel. There's the first of them. So it is. Davy kicks the seal into the sea. It bobs and floats out. So we have a character or 2 characters who play around with death, commenting on what was before in a way. Narakiel writes, I don't really understand what's the screenplay about, so the story. Yeah, what's it about? So there's a murder happening. We have, so far, we're on page 5, and we had Sally, James or Mike, and 2 other characters, Jack and Davy. But it's not quite clear who the main character is. I think that's what you mean. We are not really aware who the main character might be yet. Let's read on. Cut to interior ferry night. The main compartment of the ferry is bustling with activity. Rosie, late 20s, is climbing on. She looks for a seat. She finds one by a window and pushes her way through to it. Flashback. Interior Greasy Spoon, Bally Castletown, Ireland, evening. The area is next to the port and a bit rundown. The clientele is mostly fishermen or tradesmen. Rosie is distractedly reading a diner's, Jim, newspaper over his shoulder as he pours coffee for the man next to him. I think there's like an apostrophe missing there from the diners. Or is it? So she's reading over his shoulder what he's reading in the newspaper. What's happening in the world, Jim? Murder, death, violence, suicide, anger, corruption, and football. What do you want to be going out into all that shite for, Rosie? Better money, better house, better smell, better people, certainly. Ah, you'll miss us, yeah, well, like foot fingers. I know big city and you're not big city. Well, I do hate football. Rona, the head waitress, manager, sidles up. You've never been anywhere bigger than your boat, you fish-smelling soak. No, leave her be. She's got real customers, you know. Jim laughs. Rosie and Rona walk away. Don't you listen to them old dogs. I think it's fine what you're doing. I've not done it yet. Got to make me money this weekend or I'm not going anywhere. You're expecting big tips? That's what my friend says. But the pay is enough to sort out me first month's rent in Dublin, so I'll just be happy with that. You look after yourself on that rock though, lassie. It's a strange place. A couple reminiscent of Gilbert and George, except one is female, enter, silent and pale. The man, Charles, is wearing a trilby. The female, Christy, has on a formal hat that could be from the 30s. They seat themselves in a booth. And this place, isn't it? I'll have these two then, I'm for the ferry. Rosie goes over to Charles and Christy. Good day to ya. What will I be getting you? Cut to interior ferry day. So we have a character with a flashback introduced. That indicates that this is going to be a main character in the story. But I'm guessing it's not the only main character, because we already started with a host of main characters, with a kind of ensemble, but it was a fake ensemble in a way, because the murder happened, and I'm not supposing that the husband comes in later again. It could be, but I'm not sure so far. Interior ferry day. Charles and Christy enter the ferry. Rosie notices and tries to wave, but they move through to a different part of the ferry. She then notices a handsome yet disheveled man, T.I., in a fur-hooded parka, early 30s, clambering on with a small case, followed by a smartly dressed and perfectly coiffed man, Webster. T.I. and Rosie's eyes meet briefly, but the moment is broken by Webster shoving T.I. So this Webster guy is coming back in, and he was in the opening. There was a line in the first few scenes. Let me go back. Here. Then behind the curtains come back to reveal a balcony full of her friends and colleagues, including the man we will soon come to know as Webster. This is a very clever character introduction because we can already see the way it's shot. There's a group of people, a group of friends and colleagues, and one guy is there, but he doesn't quite belong to them. So it's already filmic in a way. Cinematic. I think that's the right word. Okay, let's go back. So this one guy, T.I., is together with this Webster guy, who is probably the murderer. At least that's what we are supposed to believe. These all for our convention. The other one I expect, a collector's convention or something. Collectors? Like comics? God, I hope not. You don't like comics? Comics are for people too slow to watch movies. I already hate the guy. Did you have a childhood? Yes, until I was 9 and I realized children were idiots with no rights, money or power. How long's this leg? About 2 hours. T.I. sighs. You've no one to blame but yourself. Flashback. Okay, we're still on page 7 and it's the second flashback in the story. Interior, plush office, London day. T.I. is sat at one end of a large table. At the other is an older, important-looking man, the chairman. He speaks quietly but with resonance and with an Irish lilt. This is your third strike, T.I. Very disappointing. I'm sorry, sir, but Mr. Webster is your supervisor and should be respected. 2 hours previous. Interior, supervisor's office day. An uncomfortably suited T.I. stood in front of Webster's desk. On the desk is the sign Supervisor. Webster distracted by his computer. He barely looks at T.I. when he speaks. When will you learn that these people are slaughtering the economy, T.I.? They take the food from our mouths and stuff it down the fat red necks of the half-breed babies that they fire out at a rate that would shame a Gatling gun. She's 89. She just needs 5 days to pay her next installment. 89? She's a walking corpse. Cut her off. It will kill her. God willing. T.I. folds up the claim and then launches himself at Webster. Back to chairman's office. Protocol says I should fire you, but you're one of our best workers. He rummages amongst a pile of letters and then thrusts the pamphlet at T.I. Here. Yes, just the thing. T.I. reads the pamphlet. It says, the Global Insurance Trust Convention and Gala. The beautiful island of Rathlin, Ireland, will play host to 3 days of seminars, networking, power sessions, and topped off with a fully catered gala and after party. You'll never want to leave. It's just the thing for you and Mr. Webster. We were going to send Sally from accounts, but, well, you would probably benefit more anyway, so lucky you. Okay, so this is the first time Sally is mentioned. Who was murdered. Back to present. The engines of the ferry roar into life and it moves away from the dock. T.I. looks around the ferry. He sees Rosie looking out the window. A good-looking guy sits next to her. She turns to him and smiles. T.I. sighs and turns back to his own window. Exterior ferry sea night. T.I. goes back to looking out the window. In the sea, the corpse of a dead seal bobs past. Exterior ferry night. A man stands looking out to sea lighting matches and watching them extinguished by the sea spray. Interior ferry night. T.I. is jostled awake by people getting their luggage from around him and disembarking. Webster is stood looking down at him in every way possible. So I noticed the language in this script. I'm more used to reading American English than British English, and I don't know if Webster is stood looking instead of Webster stands looking, if that is like an English colloquialism. It could be, it could very well be. So please tell me if you know. Another thing is, we had the scene in the Irish diner or coffee place, and the Irish accents. It was a very lively scene, and we understood where the different characters were coming from, the knowledge they have, the background they have, where they grew up. It was very, very cool to see a unique voice for all the different characters. So it's also, it could be said that this is a unique voice in the way the author writes here. So Mark, when you're hearing this is it's a nod to you, a positive nod. One of many to come. Okay, we hear exterior Rathlin Island port night. The ferry pulls into the snow-covered harbor. Webster and T.I. disembark along with all the others. T.I. wraps his coat around him. Webster actually seems exhilarated. There is a cab driver holding a sign for their insurance company. They head over to it. Rosie disembarks and Hildy runs to her. They hug. Jack appears behind Hildy and picks up Rosie's case. She grabs his hand. Jack is startled. And what the fuck do you think you're doing, you little bastard? Jack stumbles over his words and fails to get any out. Ah, Rosie, this is just Jack. He's a little weirdo, aren't ya? But he's helping out now, aren't ya, Jack? Giving us a lift to me ma's. Jack nods but isn't happy about the weirdo comment. Oh right, sorry there, Jack. Quick to judge I am. Go on with yourself. Rosie smiles and Jack receives it with inner glee. Don't tease him, Rosie. How the feck have you been, you paranoid idiot? Jack picks up her bag and heads toward a 4x4 type car. He stares after Hildy. Can't complain, can I? Well, I could, plenty, but what's the point? Feck all. Come on. Let's get you sorted. Interior taxi night. The taxi winds down a snowy back road surrounded by forest. You sure can fit a town on an island this size? Aye. Is it far? No. They come around a corner to be presented with a large set of gates with a sign that spans the road, proudly displaying the name Kathleen. Two ravens are perched on the sign. As the car enters the gates, a face in the woods can be seen. Jack's. He looks at the passing car with suspicion. Davy's face appears next to him and pulls him back into the woods. So far we read 10 pages and it's clear that we have more than one main character. We have T.I., obviously. We have Rosie. And we also have the two boys, Davy and Jack. T.I., he works for an insurance company, so he's like a born detective. Rosie, she's a waitress. In a movie, I know it's a cliche, but she's a born victim for a horror film, because waitresses usually are. But she could very well develop into a very strong female lead character later on. Who knows? Because she is a character who thinks a lot. We know that from the scene in the diner where she talks about why she's moving out, why she's heading out from her birthplace. And the people she knows are not happy about that, but she has to move on to make it in the world. My guess is that Rosie and T.I. are the main characters here, and that Davy and Jack still play a role, but they are more like the subplot characters. So there's a subplot going on to the main plot, but the main plot hasn't quite picked up yet. We know that there's a convention going on, and all the characters are going to this convention, even Jack and Davy. But we still don't know. I mean, the question in the chat room is a very good question. What is this all about? Where will this all lead to? All we have so far is a mystery, and I'm not sure if that is strong enough if we only judge the first 10 pages, or if we should know a little bit more, or should know a little bit more who is the central character. But that's always a difficulty of ensemble films, I think. Let's read until page 15 and we'll find out if that solves itself in the next few pages. Okay, exterior town, high street, night. Through the gates is the town, a quaint, quiet, tranquil little place. The taxi drives slowly through the town's short high street and out of the other side. On a hill past the back end of the town is the convention center. T.I. and Webster crane their necks to see their destination looming. It is an old-fashioned 1930s place with a few modern touches. Exterior convention center, hotel, night. T.I. and Webster exit their cab. There is a mix of people from the ferry and others. Some are in suits, others very much not. As T.I. and Webster exit their cab, Jack pulls up in his 4x4. Interior convention center, hotel, night. Inside, people are checking in. There is a large sign indicating what is on what floor. Ground, reception. First floor, collectors convention, main hall and bar. Second, collectors convention, seminar rooms, suites 1 till 34. Third floor, GIT convention, lecture hall and bar, suites 35 till 54. Fourth floor, rooms 55 till 99. Fifth floor, rooms 100 till 150. Webster goes to the front desk as T.I. observes his surroundings. Webster and Marshall for the insurance convention. Mrs. Mannion checks her list and hands them 2 key cards. Mrs. Mannion. Ah, yes, 144 and 145. 5th floor. You can take the lift at the end of the foyer. Do you need assistance with your baggage? I do, he doesn't. My baggage is purely emotional. Oh my god, I really like that line. A porter takes Webster's bag. T.I. and Webster follow. Interior, convention center, hotel, night. Rosie and Hildy enter. Jack follows and drops Rosie's bag at the desk. Okay, I have to say, from that line, my baggage is purely emotional. T.I. is the main character, I'm sure of it. And I can so much understand this guy so far. If this had come like a page earlier, if this was a bit more compressed and the pacing a bit faster, I think this line would even work better. Interior convention center. Yes. Rosie and Hildy enter. Jack follows and drops Rosie's bag at the desk. Thanks there, Jack. Much appreciated. She smiles. Jack smiles back meekly and stares a little bit too long. Then Benny, a small, pudgy, hamster-like man, followed by a small entourage, walks across the foyer like a teacher on a school trip. Fire exits? Check. Sprinkler system? I do not want a repeat of last time you're here. How are you, Daddy? This is Rosie, my friend from over the crossing. Jack realizes he is no longer being noticed and slinks off. Chevy's given the go-ahead, Mr. Mannion. Grant, to Hildy. Oh, hello there, Rosie. I'll be seeing you for dinner tonight. That'll be nice. Make sure you get your keys from your mother first, Hildy. Benny trots off. Now, canapes? Hildy shrugs. The convention's the biggest thing the island's seen in a decade. Everyone's going fracking mental. What happened a decade ago? Another convention. Also, a great line, a great gag. I really like the humor in the script. It works. And I think I understand the structure a bit better now, because I think I know where this is going to lead so far. Because we have a convention center, we have all these people there, we are introduced to an ensemble of characters, and there's a murderer going to be at the convention. And now you can make up your own mind what is going to happen. Is he going to kill one by one? What's going to be happening there? So I think we have a strong horror line here. It begins with a murder, so we know there's a monster here. This Webster guy is built up as a monster. He has a strong moral argument against humanity. The strongest only survive, and no, that's not really his moral argument. His moral argument is much deeper than that. We saw that in the scene with T.I. when he's arguing for who to insure, and that this 89-year-old is already over it. And let me go back to that scene because I think it's really important. Here. Listen to this and tell me what his moral argument is. When will you learn that these people are slaughtering the economy, T.I.? They take the food from our mouths and stuff it down the fat rat necks of the half-breed babies that they fire out at a rate that would shame a Gatling gun. So his argument is, these people are stupid rednecks. All they do is make babies that are even stupider than they are or at the same level. All they can do is copulate, and they take away the food from the intelligent people. And then he adds, 89, she's a walking corpse. So his argument is only the young, intelligent people like me should get the food and the money and be the society, the ideal society. So this Webster guy is built up as a monster from the get-go. It's not clear whether he is going to be the killer, but we can assume that there's going to be a surprise there. Okay, we have 1 hour so far, half an hour so far. Let me read a bit more. Narakiel, do you have another question? Just ask in the chat room. There we are. I have to check the chat. Check the chat. Hildy and Rosie head to reception. A woman late 40s is behind the desk. You need to register yourself here with me, Ma. Hey Ma, this here's Rosie. Good to meet you, Mrs. Mannion. Rosie, oh yes, helping my girl on the bar, yes? Welcome to our little hotel. Now you'll be needing these. Mrs. Mannion hands her a key card, a time card, and a pass. Key card, you'll be sharing with Hildy. Time card, punch in and out at the start and end of your shifts. Now the rules. Ah, Ma. There's rules we have here at the Catholic Convention Center and Hotel, and I will be telling them to your friend here now. Do you hear me, young lady? Yes, Ma, sorry. Right now, there will be no shenanigans with the guests. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is you only go where your pass says you can go. There's many precious things about this weekend, and we don't want any damage now, do we? No poking your noses in places they shouldn't be poking. They shouldn't be poking, you hear? I hear ya, Mrs. Mannion. My nose will be right where it should be. Good. Now get away with you. Can you not see I have guests aplenty? I'll see you for dinner, 6 p.m. sharp. Come on, shenanigans. Jesus. Mrs. Mannion goes back to her customers. Hildy pulls Rosie away and then becomes distracted by an attractive, well-dressed man, slick, as he wanders through the elevator. Rosie pulls Hildy now. As she does, the couple from the diner enter. Rosie gives them a little wave. They do not respond. As the couple reach reception, Mrs. Mannion's demeanor changes to more reverential. It's not about the screenplay, to be honest. The wallpaper you got in the background, do we have to send them to you when you get our screenplays, or do you do this yourself? Because I'll try to make a wallpaper for my screenplay. If you have a wallpaper, you can send it to me. If you don't have a wallpaper, I will just choose whatever I like. This is just my taste. I thought with a more crime or detective or thriller vibe, I could get away with this wallpaper. I hope it kind of fits the story, but I'm well aware that it is not perfect. And so far there haven't been so many guns, so I thought this is good for clicks, you know. People would click it if I put a gun in it and a woman. Okay, so what do we have here? A very interesting scene with the rules established. No shenanigans with the guests. What do we notice here? There, of course, will be shenanigans with the guests. There must be shenanigans with the guests. We expect this to happen now. We don't really expect her poking her nose, but who knows? Thank you. You like the one I chose. Yes, I like it as well. I use Pixabay for that. On Pixabay, you can get free photos and free images. I feel it as well. Also very interesting in the plot so far. we don't just have the guests of a convention that are falling victim to a murderer. We have people working at the convention. So we have different social groups, and that gives the script more of a depth that works really well. Okay, Mrs. Mannion goes back to her customers. Hildy pulls Rosie away and then becomes distracted by an... no, we already had that. Good evening. It is an honor to welcome you to the Catherine Convention Center and Hotel. Thank you. The woman nods. Your suite is ready. Here is your key and my personal card. Do not hesitate to call day or night. The Mrs. Mannion hands over the key card. It says Christy Charles. Christy hands the card to Charles. Charles puts it in his side pocket. They head for the stairs. So we have a lot of mysterious characters. And so far I can't really see where this is going. With the characters, I mean. We have Rosie, we have T.I., we have the two boys, and we have a load of other characters that are more mysterious. You see, in a horror film, you have a clear monster. But this monster often turns out not to be the monster at all, because there's a switch happening in the movie and suddenly the human beings are the monsters and the monster is more humane than we thought it to be. That often happens in a horror film. Not in all, granted. Then we have a thriller. In a thriller you have a clear bad guy, but then suddenly we are doubting if he's the clear bad guy at all. So there's a switch always going back and forth, who's the bad guy? In a detective story, we have a mystery and a loads of characters, and we don't know who did it. So far, the main structure here is a detective story, but we don't have a clear detective, because the story is laid as a mystery for the audience and not as a mystery for the character. Not so far yet. We have not seen T.I. coming up with a desire or a want or a goal. And Rosie as well, all she wants is working there. And we are already on page 15. So let's see where the story leads us. Interior, Rosie and Hildy's room, night. The room is small and sparse. Rosie and Hildy are now in their uniforms. Can you believe me ma put us in such a room? It's smaller than me ma's own shitter. It's tidy and smells nice, which is more than I can say for my flat. And me ma's shitter, it's just grand that you're here. Ain't nothing but sheep and Egypts. Might bag me a cute bucko this weekend though. Don't you be getting me into trouble now. I need this money, something fierce. Ah, you're worse than me ma. Can we not have good crack while we work? There's a big do on the last night. Should me monstrous shenanigans. Hildy laughs. Rosie joins in. They leave. So it's a lighter mood. Getting it back up again. Exterior, nearby hill, night. Someone smokes and watches the center from a distance. Aha! Page 15. And there's a mysterious figure watching from a distance. Surrounding the feet of the man are matches and cigarettes. A flaming postcard of the center is dropped to the snow with a hiss. The person walks off. So you introduce the bad guy here again. That's my guess. Interior, convention center, living area, evening. Hildy and Rosie enter. Mrs. Mannion is serving up. The room more like an old-fashioned B&B than a hotel. On the wall are pictures of Miss Mannion and Benny through their life together, along with commendations for health and safety, food and hospitality, etc. for their previous B&Bs. Ah, why are you in your uniforms? You'll get them filthier, Will. We're working straight after, Ma. It saves time. Always with your time saving. Will you never want to do something properly, girl? Not if it takes ages. What's for dinner? Nothing fancy. I'm too busy to cook, Rosie. I'm too busy to cook, Rosie. So you'll have to forgive the simplicity of the meal. In Germany, we say sometimes grammar and sentence structure can totally change the meaning of a sentence. I'm too busy to cook, Rosie. I'm too busy to cook, Rosie. There's a slight difference there. I'm not sure how the English grammar is supposed to work with the commas, etc. In German, there's always a need for a comma. It smells delicious, Mrs. Mannion. You see there, lassie, manners. 'Tis a shame you're not here year-round, Rosie. She might have turned out different. Cheers, Ma. Where's Daddy? Daddy's here. And you mind your mother now. Jesus, it's from all angles. I can't be staying long. Still a million things to be done. They sit. Rosie goes to say grace, but sees no one else is. Sorry. Ah, that's very commendable, child. But God knows we have a tight schedule, so shall we get straight to the eating? Interior, T.I.'s hotel room night. T.I. looks out of the window to see the arrivals. Most are obviously not insurance. He opens his little bag and takes out a small bottle of whiskey and has a swig. Exterior, foyer night. T.I. enters and heads toward the double doors with the sign opening night party. The sound of a good time emanates from behind the doors. Two doormen block T.I.'s entrance. I really, really like that line. The sound of a good time emanates from behind the doors. It's so precise, it's so compressed, but yet so clear. Really love it. May I see your pass, sir? Pass. Yes, sir, your pass. T.I. pulls out his insurance convention pass. The doorman examines it, then hands it back. This is a collector's only event, sir. What? Your pass does not allow you access to this area, sir. It's a comic convention. Come on, I just want a drink and a burger. T.I. tries to move past. Doorman 2 puts his hand against T.I.'s chest to stop him. T.I. bats the hand away. The doormen shift into fuck-off mode. Doorman 1 grabs T.I. by the collar and pushes him up against the wall. Again, the doormen shift into fuck-off mode. Precise, clear, we know exactly what's going on. Great description. And I also like that you put them Doorman 1 and Doorman 2 because oftentimes we feel as writers we have to give every character a name, but they don't deserve a name here. So it's very good. Are you going to be a problem, sir? I really like that. I've heard that before myself. No, I'm not going to be a problem. This must be some party. You have access to the insurance bar on the 3rd floor, sir. I suggest you use it. Very nice, doorman. I feel like you have experienced this yourself before. It feels very natural and personal. He lets T.I. go. T.I. looks at Doorman 1, then at Doorman 2. Both are stony-faced. T.I. leaves with a snort. As he does, he passes a man with a collector's pass. He is allowed entrance. Interior insurance bar night. T.I. enters the sparsely populated bar. There are a few small groups here and there. Rosie serves at the bar while Hildy is on the floor. Interior main bar night. The party is in full swing. A group of men are comparing unseen photos. A few people are huddled, flicking through a book called My Life on the Road by Little Horn. Another person is holding an origami person whose paper mechanism allows its head to fall off. This is hysterical to some. This is a callback to The Killer, if you remember. Charles and Christy are there signing autographs. At the other side of the room is a stage with a microphone. Benny enters and taps the mic. A silence falls. Good evening and welcome to the 3rd Kathleen Collectors Convention. Before we get to the fun, some housekeeping. The bar is free tonight. The crowd cheer. But tonight only. This thing has to pay for itself somehow. Also, this is a no-smoking center. Observe the very clear fire safety rules. And most important, the 3-day rule is now in effect. These rules are in place for a reason. Bottle it up and let it all out on day 3. Now that's out of the way, the bar is open. Whoops and cheers. Cut to interior insurance bar night. T.I. is sat with a fat older man, Murray, who is waffling. Interior insurance bar night. Murray is still holding court with T.I., who is also a bit drunk. The place is a bit busier. Hildy is on the floor taking orders and flirting. Rosie is on the bar. So I come home, walk in, take off my shoes, grab a beer like I've done 1,000 times before, and my wife walks in. Only it's the wrong wife. I was meant to be in Bristol, but force of habit, I drove to Sheffield. Didn't even think 200 miles. Never occurred to me. You forgot that you were married to 2 women? Jesus. It's the endless roads. They're like some Nazi brain torture. Wipes your mind. You didn't think of divorcing one? It was cheaper just to maintain both. Right. Same again? Got to drain the last ones first. Murray goes to the toilet. T.I. moves along the bar to Rosie. Another 2 shots. And a gun to blow my brains out, please. I really like T.I. Have I mentioned that before? Will that be hollow point or dumb bullets with that pistol, sir? Whatever's more final. Okay, this is an indicator that the shenanigans are going to happen between those 2, right? And that T.I. and Rosie are going to become the main characters, that there's a relationship going to develop. I don't know these things. Could just turn out differently, but this is the suggestion here. T.I. sits impatiently, slowly tearing a beer mat to pieces. Another insurance man, Carl, greasily well-dressed and half-cut, approaches the bar and lingers impatiently as Rosie heads off to do T.I.'s order. Carl is clearly annoyed at this. Another thing, very personal, the way he tears up the beer mat. I think you've done that before yourself as well as a writer, and I can relate to the character there. It's a very visual thing, and it's a cinematic thing, I think. Is that bitch blind? T.I. turns his head to Carl. She'll get to you soon enough. Who the fuck are you, her agent? Just someone trying to have a quiet drink. Yeah, well, I'm someone trying to get loaded and fuck some island pussy. So shut your mouth and tell that bitch to hurry the fuck up. T.I. crunches up. The mat turns to Carl. T.I. crunches up the mat, turns to Carl. I think there's a comma missing. Carl does likewise. Don't bother, buddy. I do capoeira twice a week. Even my dick's got skills. T.I. stands. Carl squares up. You want to unleash this shit? T.I. says nothing. Carl gets in his face. Don't fuck with me, boy. I'm a killer in and out of the office. T.I. headbutts Carl. Carl goes down holding his squirting nose. T.I. goes for another when Murray returns to intervene. Usually takes till day 2 to get to the violence. Well done, sir. To Carl. Come on. I think it's time for you to go and waste some of that energy on the adult channels. At least that's what I'm going to do. Murray walks Carl out of the bar. T.I. returns to his seat, seething. Rosie brings him his shot and a water pistol. T.I. downs the shot. Rosie points the water pistol at him. Something troubling you? Just feeling a little hemmed in. That all you got? Gesturing to the water pistol. I'm afraid we're out of high-powered handguns, sir. Just bash me over the head with a whiskey bottle then. There's a big tip in for you. Hildy approaches. The only tips these guys put their hands on is the end of their dicks. 2 Mai Tais, Rosie. To T.I., you don't look like one of the pocket fondlers. Why are you here? Punishment. A lot of that going around. Of course, there's always the possibility of redemption. Hildy has spied Slick entering. He sits alone. Hildy heads over to him with the tray of drinks. She drops them off and heads to Slick and flirts openly with him. We do it for the love. I can tell. One more. And one for yourself. We're in this together. Rosie pours 2 shots. Hildy is deep in conversation with Slick. T.I. and Rosie down a shot. Well, that's my per diem drained. T.I. stands. Don't forget your weapon. T.I. picks up the water pistol. He fires but no water. Empty. Story of my life. Great guy, man. Great guy. T.I. smiles and leaves. Rosie is left alone watching Hildy flirt. A drunk insurance man approaches. I'd like sex on the beach and an orgasm for yourself and then some drinks. Rosie looks at the insurance man with venomous disdain. The man cowers and walks back to his table and gets his coat. Interior T.I.'s bedroom night. T.I. slumps on his bed and looks at the ceiling. Interior foyer night. The doorman stands stoically outside as the party winds down with a group sing song of My Way. Doorman 2 hums the chorus. Doorman 1 looks at him disapprovingly. Very good callback to those characters, makes them more human, and now I think they deserve a name even. Like, you want to know more about those 2 doormen. We are on page 22, and I think that's already a lot. We read really far in the script. Now my thoughts about the way it's structured. I think the opening with Sally and James is very strong. It's very funny on the one side with the head on the plate. It's very disturbing on the other side with the dead body. And I don't get as a reader why those 2 are important. Because this is a horror opening. It's straight from a horror film, the way it's structured. Then you move back like you have a strong opening, a very quick opening, a very horrific opening, but then you move into characters that are not connected to that death. And we also don't know how they are going to be connected to that death later on. So we have a detective character with T.I., and we know that he probably has the skills to uncover a murderer. But we are not led on a trail. So there's no strong desire line. There's no strong need. There's no strong want. There's no strong goal in the beginning. And this is a bit confusing for the audience. I guess this will come into play a bit later here. And this can work, but I'm still questioning, why do we not know the connection to Webster? Like, we know that Webster is connected to T.I., but we only know that he doesn't really like him. And the mystery is not revealed. You put in a scene to remind us of the danger of the murderer, where we see a person in the distance smoking and watching the convention, but there's nothing happening there either. It's just a guy watching. And I should read further to see where the goal comes in, where the wand comes in. But my guess is that it will take a bit for Rosie and for T.I. to get to know each other before that really happens. We have a very cynical main character with T.I. He is a man of words. He has the best gags in the script so far. I really like him. I really like the way he thinks and feels, and I feel connected to him deeply. But I think it could all be a bit more compressed. It could be moved a bit forward in the script, because the flashbacks are interesting, but they move away from the plot in the present. And I think you put them in to indicate that the Rosie and T.I. are the two main characters. But they meet only on page 15, I think, which is a bit late for a feature film script. Yeah, you could also say, like, if this is horror, if you want to put in horror elements, why haven't we seen another horror element yet? Why was the only horror element in the early beginning of the script, and not now, not in the convention center? Why was there nothing happening yet? You could have used the scene where the man is staring to turn this into a scene where he's killing someone or something like that. That could increase the stakes. Okay, coming back now to what I really like about the script. First, the opening is great. It puts us on the edge of our feet. The way you open with all the sensory elements is great. She sniffs, she touches the sofa, she looks around, stuff like that. The little details, the way he destroys the beer mat, stuff like that is great. The voices of the characters are great. The different colloquialisms, the different accents. Every character has a unique voice. The dialogue is great. Then stuff like "you fucker," it's a great point to end the scene. Like, the opening is really wonderful. The overall style, I would say, the way you move the scenes, is very good. The flashbacks I'm not so sure about, but in the flashbacks, the scenes themselves, they are really well done. Oh, and concerning the dialogue, I really like the moral argument your character is putting forth. Because the best moral argument of a villain is when there is something to it. And there is something to what he says. Like the fat rednecks of the half-breed babies and stuff like that. It's strong language, it's evil, but there's a kernel of truth in it. And that makes it so explosive as a moral argument. Moral argument is the theme of the script. And so far, we haven't seen much of a moral argument. We have seen that with Webster and T.I., that they clash. Webster, you use that as in terms of, like, save the cat. Maybe you know that philosophy of screenwriting. This is like a save the cat moment for the character, because here we show that T.I. is a sympathetic character because he goes against what Webster says. He jumps at him. He launches at him as he says that. And therefore, we already know the two sides of the argument. We also have a thematic element in the opening where we have a husband playing a prank on his wife, and he probably shouldn't have played the prank because the next day she wakes up dead in the bathtub or in the shower. But other than that, we have moral characters. We have the Miss Mannion, who tells the girl working for her that she shouldn't do any shenanigans with the guests. That's a strong moral stance, and that works really well because we expect that to happen later. Okay, so I'm looking forward to reading this to the end and to see how it all turns out. If you have further questions, just comment on this video. I'm looking forward to reading all your notes on the script, and I wish you a great writing day, a great reading day. Send me scripts, and see you next time in the next live stream when we are reading the next screenplay. So long, and always remember that you are not alone out there.